Hey, it's Patrick coming at you, truth bombing on the evening PM version of what we're in the midst of on Friday, March 31st, 2023, 9 p.m. my time. And, you know, I, I came out strong the last couple of days. I asked you for support. I asked you to lean in. I asked you to join this movement. And unfortunately, over the course of the last 24 to 48 hours, I've managed to attract a donut. Before that, I think we've had up to 50 people that have gotten involved, and we're somewhere around $1,500 in the capital raise. And, far short of my objectives that I stated earlier at the week, that I wanted to land 1,300 investors, 1,300 patriots, 1,300 people committed to elevating the truth above all else. That would also invest $1,300 in all of the different things that I've laid out throughout the week. And, unfortunately, I'm not coming anywhere close. And I'm trying to suss out why, I saw some interesting comments going back and forth in some social media that I just happened to be tagged on. One person from Australia was like, I don't know who this guy Patrick is. And, what she made clear was her, objective is all things revelation of the climate catastrophe on our hands, and that's pretty much her primary focus. And fortunately, my colleague had pointed out to her that, well, you're never going to be able to reboot, we collectively, a new energy paradigm for the globe before we're all, up to our, well, let's just say submerged in the impending disaster, unless, of course, we tackle corruption first. Because everything on the other side of purging corruption allows us to actually redeem ourselves in a way that smart people can have an opportunity to create an honest global community in a variety of ways, and where we unleash the creative spirit in a way that's not completely controlled by the devastation of the fossil fuel industry, the devastation of finance and international corruption and everything that I'm laying out on you that really stems primarily from the United States. And again, I continue to reveal to you that what I have and why people need to lean in and to join arms and what we're all about is that because I'm revealing to you what no one else will, what no one else has. And I have the evidence, and I got it after years of effort. I think I'm going on 13 years of this freaking righteous grind that cost millions upon millions of dollars to do it, to get all of the information and the evidence from the top people in the country to prove it and to lay it out, and to what ends? To be suffocated, to be drowned out, to be ignored, to be everything. I'm up against every single wall, dead end imaginable. And, I think all of the arguments are sound, and yet they don't penetrate and we don't catch fire. And it could be a whole lot of reasons. It could be that people just aren't getting it. They're overwhelmed. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to do anything about it. They're finding other things that they find more entertaining. They want to block it out. Or maybe it's a combination of that and some sort of, technological, shadow banning or prevention in terms of. I just know that there's a lot of technical tricks way beyond my skill, way beyond my knowledge, and that's part and parcel to what I would, get involved with and invest in if we were able to raise the capital raise to get us to our goals, specifically 1,300 investors at 1,300 or $13 a piece. I'm not asking you for $14. I'm not asking you for $1,300. I'm not asking you for $13,000. I'm asking you for $13 and you to reach out to 13 other people to get them to come to this movement. And what is this movement? It's to elevate the truth that I've aggregated that could turn the entire system upside down that controls the country. And so what I've done over the course of the last couple of days, and tonight was no different. I just decided to tap into what was happening in mainstream, and just so I could take notes and kind of report back to you of what's happening with the high-paid majors in primetime, and contrast that to what it is that's on display with everybody's attention vis-a-vis Donald Trump, the indictments, and everything that we'll be dealing with from now until eternity, quite frankly. But probably now and through the presidential election, the 2024 presidential election. And, at first I wanted to tune in briefly to Fox just to kind of get a temperature gauge of it. And it was exactly what I thought. I mean, the espousal of the vitriol and, the call to arms and the lies is astronomical. I mean, to think that this operation is in business is insane. What I could, literally observe and take notes on was enough to make you, if you had the resources to do so, probably file several lawsuits of deceptive acts and practices and outright lying. And, interestingly, I happened to channel surf to CNN earlier, and I did catch one useful thing on CNN, which was the revelation that the Dominion lawsuit and the subpoenas are revealing more and more revelations of outright, just audacious lying. I mean, Rupert Murdoch has effectively said, yeah, we lie. That's what our business model is. That's what gets ratings. We know how to do that, and that's what drives our revenue. And you're like, okay, I knew that all along, but to see that in a court of law, I keep asking myself, well, wait a second, that's libel. It has to be. And as it turns out, it is. And so they're going to get popped, and it's going to be a big hit to the company and the shareholders and everything else. And, I don't know how much Rupert Murdoch is worth, even if he paid the entire $1.6 billion fee. I mean, that would be like a drop in the bucket for him, right? And of course, he's not going to pay that. It's going to be the company that pays that. So it might have some effect on the shareholders, and it might, create some waves, I would suspect, downstream. But really, if you parse out what exactly the business models and who the target audiences are for three of the majors, Fox has got to be for an education of, at best, middle school. I mean, the level of stupidity and outright deception and lies, and I mean, just, it's beguiling. It's ridiculous. It's horrific. And it's like, God, every single time I see it, I want to turn the channel. It's hard for me to even stomach 5 minutes of it. But at the same time, you're like, okay, I mean, the big question is, how in the world are they remaining in business? Not to mention advertisers that advertise on their business. I mean, there's all sorts of just really despicable sort of mannerisms engaged in that entire network. But probably the most, I'd say, threatening seemed to be tonight when it looks like, Tucker Carlson is encouraging, through kind of an off-the-cuff remark that, yeah, you better go get your AR-15s. Like I said last night, I mean, it's just like they're just going to want to create a race war. That's all. And I think most of them are too lazy to do it. But there are many dangerous people that are calibrated that way. And we'll see what happens. I mean, there's news tonight that Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying, hey, she's going to go support Trump. And of course, she's famous for saying had she led the insurrection, they would have been armed to the teeth and they would have won. How is she not in prison? But okay, whatever. And, let me just say, if she goes hardcore charging into the NYPD, I don't think that would turn out very well for Marjorie. So I think it's probably just, a game of roulette, chicken, whatever, and they're all a bunch of freaking bloviating morons. But as was revealed earlier tonight, also, Jim Jordan is, trying to make all sorts of demands of the New York DA's office, and they're running circles around him because he's in the kids pool. He couldn't hold a candle to the level of talent that's in the New York City DA department, and not to mention their resources and the firepower of their attorneys and everything else. And they're getting embarrassed, as they should. But that's not something you'd ever see on Fox, And if you were to contrast Fox, and it's like maybe middle school at best education level in terms of their content. CNN, what is it, like People Magazine at best? Really personalities and hey, let's shoot a bunch of ideas back and forth and never get anywhere. I was watching earlier tonight, and I really just not a fan at all, and I haven't watched this stuff in a long time, but I'm only doing so again to reveal all of this misinformation in context to the information that I have. And I'm trying to get your attention to understand that we have to elevate to the world. But Erin Burnett was interviewing both attorneys, Donald Trump's attorney, and who apparently she had a relationship with, and Michael Cohen's attorney, Lanny Davis. And I'll tell you, Lanny Davis ran circles around Erin Burnett because you could see the look on her face of how distraught and really almost insulted she was that this guy Lenny Davis was saying things like, Aaron, you had this defense attorney for Trump, and you had like 5 or 6 different marquee points that you could have completely shared with your audience that would reveal that he's lying and suborning information and moving, the pieces of the puzzle around in a disingenuous, literally sort of call out on her giving props to somebody who's lying to the audience. And whether or not he was completely accurate, I don't know for sure, but I was buying it, and I made a lot of sense to me based on his arguments. And I can't remember exactly what those arguments were, but it was something along the lines of who had what evidence. And they were talking about, of course, individual one in that case, and him being involved in all of the things that Michael Cohen had been convicted of, and we talked about that last night. So anyway, it was just interesting to me to see a high-paid primetime anchor at a major network being called out for not being either prepared or probably willfully and intentionally misleading her audience based on allowing certain statements by Donald Trump's defense attorney to go unchallenged. And yeah, that would mean that she's unprepared, and everything I've ever seen Erin Burnett do would reveal that she's unprepared and just a complete waste of time. But, there you go. There's somebody in prime time that is apparently providing a lot of information that a lot of people are listening to. That's not what I'm revealing to you. And then, of course, I turned it to MSNBC, and, the difference in terms of the product, the anchors, their intelligence, and what they're capable of. Obviously, MSNBC is for an audience that's got a college education, at least, if not much higher. Their talent are all very smart. But my criticism has been, of course, they've never bothered revealing the information that I'm revealing to you. But I had to admit, I got a couple of things tonight that I thought were very useful, very valuable, worthy of accolade. That's not worthy of appreciation in a sense, in terms of information, because, Chris Hayes was really in a great spot tonight. And I thought what was really important about Chris Hayes was that, he wanted to kind of what's the word I'm looking for? He wanted to maybe untangle the truth that a lot of the emotion yesterday that I was critical of in my last night's Truth Bomb was that, people are hopeful, and there was a lot of like, this moment has finally come. We're indicting Trump. The law is going to prevail. No man is above the law. This proves that we have integrity. This proves that we have a democracy. This proves that we're a nation of laws, and so therefore we are still the United States. Chris Hayes completely just blew that out of the water tonight by saying the obvious, which a lot of us out here in the real world would agree with, is that, look, you go to court, the only chance you're going to have at a fair trial where you get discovery and you get a chance to make your case is if you can afford good attorneys, first and foremost. And in that case, you should probably hope for a lot of attention so that the judge is going to actually make the rulings based on the way the rules are written and to be on their A game, which unfortunately doesn't happen in millions of cases because in a lot of cases, the judiciary is overworked, overwhelmed. They want to get through cases quickly. They want to get people to plea out. They use bad law to get people convicted. They do all sorts of things because they've got dockets and they're incentivized to move things quickly because they only have X amount of budget and it's like a business, and that has nothing to do with justice, especially in the case of what I am revealing to you. Because in millions upon millions of cases, and this happened, I got more information today, literally, in the case of foreclosure processes and foreclosure law, what's happened, which is just astronomically beyond comprehension that nobody knows this, particularly in the mainstream, but it just iterates exactly and exemplifies exactly why I have to do what I'm doing. So there are, there are standards and laws to where a foreclosing party, which in the case of the way things have been set up for like the last 20 years, Yeah, basically two parties that bring foreclosure cases most of the time. They're servicers who are supposed to collect the debt and income on thousands of different mortgages, and they put it into mortgage-backed securities, and they're supposed to manage that, the sort of thing. And so somebody goes into default, they go into the foreclosure process. The servicers hire foreclosure mills, and ultimately, what's been going on now since at least 2013, which is post national mortgage settlement, is that these entities make up the paperwork to show that they're the ones that own the ability to collect the debt, which they don't. They don't have the note. They were never, because there's a lot of things that happen with what we call mortgage-backed securities, where the rights of assignments were sold and resold and packaged, and some went bankrupt, and all of these different institutions with the whole melee of the aftermath of the 2008 great financial crisis, which, in terms of the, what do we call it when you do a, kind of like an audit, like a deep dive, but nobody could keep track of any of these things anyway. And so just the basic standard processes of foreclosing never followed the law. And so entities that are foreclosing are getting paid through a whole variety of things that came from the Federal Reserve, through quantitative easing, through the primary dealer brokers that go into these foreclosure mills to lie on documentation with impunity. And judges won't allow discovery to be able to prove that. And in many cases, I just found out tonight that, there was a servicer who just admitted on camera that she had, falsified and turned around over 80 different, basically, check boxes that she was providing to the court based on, her truthful statements that if you, create perjury, then the whole thing's out and she goes to jail and that sort of thing. But that didn't happen. And the judges started to circle the wagons and be like, no, nothing to see here. Anyway, it's working itself through the system. It could be a huge revelation, and there's much more to it. And it's probably a little bit convoluted for you to understand, and I don't want to do it step by step. But the long and the short of it is that it, again, is reflexive of what we're seeing over and over and over in all of the different networks, particularly interested in what's going to happen on Tuesday, because I think that it's been revealed that Trump has got 30 charges. And I think a lot of them are going to be based on the falsifying business records, which is another part of this, right? Which is what I just said. And so, again, the media is going to be hyper-focused on all of the things that Donald Trump did that were illegal, and justifiably so. But as like I went through, all the major anchors on MSNBC tonight, which I think are extraordinary talent. They're very smart, and they have a lot of times deep bullpens of former prosecutors and DAs, at the highest levels of, big cities like New York or in the Department of Justice as consultants. And, they have this incredible sort of firepower, hyper-focused on one case. And what I'm revealing to you involves tens of millions of situations, okay? That literally took down the entire world. But don't worry about it, right? Like this one person said, well, maybe Patrick's just somebody else trying to be an opportunist like everybody else that's on YouTube. Everybody's trying to get their voice out there and sell something. Yeah, I'm trying to sell the fucking truth that has destroyed the world. And if we don't get a hold of it, and we don't get our collective minds around it, and we don't overwhelm the madness in the oceans of lies with the truth, we're doomed. We already have been doomed. What else do you need? Corruption births fascism. Here we are. And it's going to get worse, and it could get a lot worse, and a lot of people are going to get in the crosshairs, and, it's all unnecessary if millions of us come together to purge corruption. And, what other comments do I want to make about what I got tonight? So Rachel Maddow came back in. She's filling in for Alex Wagner. She's apparently on vacation. So the $30 million a year woman brings up her, Bagman podcast featuring all the stuff that they did with Spiro Agnew. He was the vice president for Richard Nixon, and he got basically criminally indicted. And, she wanted to illustrate all of the different things that he did in the aftermath that didn't take down the country, and he's a forgotten guy. But he played ball, as if to indicate that that's probably what we're going to see from Trump in the long run. And then is there anything else that I wanted to comment on? Again, just the focus on, just the ridiculous nature of the salacious sort of National Enquirer, like atmosphere around everything that is Donald Trump, Stormy Daniels, David Pecker. Enough said. So I'll just leave you with this. Look, I don't know what I have to do to win you over, but I'm going to continue to try. We need to get on first base with 1,300 investors that would give us the opportunity to do maybe 4 or 5 things that need to happen. The first is to get all the right business records, given everything I'm talking about, in line so that we can, do a, proper functioning like 501c4, C3. I'm not sure which one I want to do yet, depending on, what the overall organization is going to be. And then I want to be able to start a podcast and bring these truths to light over this monumental madness of multi-million-dollar corporations, billion-dollar corporations that can lie to you with impunity. I want to bring in all of the people that I have access to with an editor and with a professional podcast engineer so that we can produce a real show capable of keeping your attention with things that'll blow your mind. And we could, keep up with the level of, revelations in terms of all of the different fraud that's happening throughout the financial system on a day-by-day basis. And as we're moving forward and we're building the awakening to the revelations of how corruption actually works, to what end, then I hope to build, a much more momentum that can lead to millions and millions of people, particularly that were on the downside of the 2008 Great Financial Crisis, and people who have been struggling ever since, to understand that, when we get these truths out there to elevate above all of these high-paid, super smart people that are going to be focusing on something like this, I'm going to be able to give you the universe of how the whole goddamn thing works. But I think particularly in context to laying out what the United States is to a seemingly lost generation of Americans who have no idea. I don't know what's happened to critical thinking. I don't know what's happened to the sort of ferocity that I grew up with that, really regarded character and independence as 2 of the most important aspects of our society. It's all down the wayside. I mean, I guess if you look back through the 80s and everything else, we have been overwhelmed with the pursuit of money, and easy money at that. And financialization has been able to do that as we've shopped out the golden goose of our, capacity, our industrial capacity to be able to produce what we consume. We don't have industrial capitalism in this country. We're a service economy, and we're an economy of middlemen through financialization who use all of the different aspects of these things that I'm trying to engage you and educate you and make you aware of, that are in the end ultimately fraud. And fraud is not shenanigans. It's illegal theft by deception, and it's incredibly clever, but it's illegal. And when you find out the entire system does it in a way that's like almost incomprehensible, but it's not, because we've learned how to make it very easy to understand. But the bottom line is, what's really incomprehensible is why everybody is so complicit in the racket, why everybody bends the knee to dishonesty. Well, because there is no accountability. And that's the whole point. And we've got to elevate the revelations to wake this country up so that we don't find ourselves in the crosshair of these lies that continually, perpetually keep everyone down. Well, the hyenas of madness, I think of the demons. I'll keep on that, that sort of thought, because they've got a complete control of the Federal Reserve. They fuel themselves to defraud everybody else, and they're above the law. So it's tyranny. So I'll just finish up on what I finish up all the time with, which is, if you, me, and everyone we can see that isn't a Nazi who believes in dignity, integrity, liberty, sustainability, if we come together, if we merge in unity, we will defeat tyranny, and that's our destiny. We have to create a tidal wave populist movement to purge corruption. It's the only way we're going to survive. It's the only way we're going to get through this. I mean, everything's on the line. The survival of the democracy, the survival of the integrity of law that a democracy depends on. And then ultimately, when those things happen, then hopefully you have a society of informed populace that consumes based on what they understand is in their best interest. And that includes, quite frankly, reconfiguring our energy paradigm. And for those at the top, not the top, but in government, what I mean by that, in leadership positions, based on a democratic sort of upswell of people saying, okay, we've spent 70 trillion to in the last 13 years to fuel corruption. What could we do if we spent $70 trillion on a real economy based on reconfiguring our energy infrastructure? We'd change the world. We'd save ourselves. We have to be much smarter in our society. We have been allowing the dumbest amongst us too much vaudeville, reaction, outrage, all the rest of it. The likes of, Marjorie Taylor Greene going to support Trump after she said that if she led the insurrection and everybody was armed, we would have had Donald Trump as the president. We're going to allow that? We're just going to sit on our hands and be like, that's just Marjorie being Marjorie. Or Jim Jordan and all of their antics and this, the talented Mr. Ripley liar sack of shit that George Santos is. I mean, all of this stuff is just failed state. I'm not going to sit by while my country goes down the goddamn tubes because of cowardice, ignorance, and weakness. That's not who I am. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to fight with everything I have to re-engineer and create, exodus from bondage, lies, and misery and slavery through the resurrection of the American dream. And that's how we're going to do it with everything that I've been laying out to you. So thanks for listening tonight. I hope you guys will consider throwing in, and I'll come back at you again and again until somehow I get some momentum and I say the right words to unlock your mind, or something catastrophic happens to where everybody suddenly goes, Jesus Christ, that dude Patrick has been telling me this thing the whole time. That's what I do. The truth has got to have value. Thank you. Onwards and upwards.